Morning or good afternoon. It's morning in California. My name is Jason Flame from the Master Motivation Podcast, and today, guys, we got a pretty kick-ass show. I mean, I got to be honest with you. This is going to be a good group right here. So we got Mr. Josh Smith, Chip Townsend, Kevin Kowalczik, all sport karate competitors, also school owners, men of faith. We have a lot in common here to talk about. So I can't wait to just get this started. And by the way, I apologize. I was messing with the buttons trying to message you guys. Hey, make sure we hang out after the show so we have a little wrap up, right? But for those of you that are watching this live, we want you to make sure that you join in on this conversation. We're going to ask for a little Q&A. So as your comments come up, I'll be posting them on the screen to ask our guests to answer them. And then we'll roll through this show today. So if we could first very quickly have Mr. Smith, Josh Smith, please introduce yourself to the audience and say hello.
My name is Josh Smith. I am a current NASCA competitor. I'm 41 years old. And yeah, I said 41. That means I'm kind of an old NASCA competitor. And been competing most of my life since I was a child. And I own 4 premier martial arts franchises in the Nashville area.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for being part of the show. And I'm excited to have you here and talk a little bit more throughout today's show. So, Mr. Chip Townsend, please introduce yourself.
Will do, man. Chip Townsend, Team Chip Martial Arts Centers. I haven't competed since 2008. Done quite a bit of competing, Olympic Taekwondo, Pan American team stuff, and back in the day, and some kickboxing, and then got into breaking and got into International Sport Karate Association breaking. We have 2 schools that we corporate own in Texas. We have schools in Oklahoma, Mississippi, and Montana. And so 6 locations total, and loving life, man. Just enjoying what we do.
Well, thank you. Thanks again. And I appreciate all 3 of you taking time out of your busy days to be on the show. Thank you, Danny Bolden and Mike Guido. You guys are watching. Get your questions ready because we can't wait to answer them for you. But let's introduce our third guest, Mr. Kevin Kowalczik.
What's up, everybody? How are you guys? Yeah, Kevin Kowalczik. I just celebrated 33 years just the other day of martial arts training and competing, which is awesome. I'm 38 years old. I co-own Team Revolution, and I'm also the owner of Revolution Martial Arts out here in Colorado. And, able to compete in NASCA and sport karate, as well as karate combat. I'm a fighter with them. And just kind of cool just to be able to watch the sport evolve and become what it's become today. So I'm stoked to be on the show. I know Jason and I are really good friends. Josh, I watch fight and compete in NASCA. He's a beast. He's amazing. And I grew up watching Chip. I mean, I remember watching Chip breaking stuff on the U.S. Open stage. And, he's an amazing martial artist, not just a breaker, just a well-rounded martial artist. So I think this is really cool to have this collective group of men on here. So I'm stoked to see where we go.
Thank you.
I forgot to share my age, man. I feel I left out something. So I'm the 51-year-old guy on the show. I'm just kidding.
Got me beat by just a couple years, but it's all good. Hey, listen, don't sell the old guys short, because we still got it. We still got it. But right. Listen, guys, let's start with this. First, let's talk about the divisions that you competed in the most, or that you're the most proud of, and just one of your greatest accomplishments in sport karate. Mr. Townsend, why don't we start with you first?
Oh boy, pick the old guy first. So let's see. Sport karate as a kid, we traveled around and did some tournament competing, point fighting and stuff. In 2000, I got connected with the ISK and got invited to come out and do a world breaking competition with them at Disney World, and really kind of fell in love with it for a period there. And in that time period, won 11 world titles and then 3 world ultimate breaking championships, what they called it. So overalls. So 14 titles. Had a good time. I've gone back a few times and set some world records on the stage for ESPN and ISK. So those are probably my most proud sport karate accomplishments right there.
Yeah. Well, like Mr. K, I followed you a lot, when the magazines were real big, right? You get the magazine, you see the ratings, and, you go on YouTube and you type in competitive breaking, and your name's going to come up near the top of the list. And it's just, you got a great team and a great group, and it's fun watching what you do.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Smith, why don't you talk a little bit about your experience, sport karate, maybe how you got into it a little bit, and some of your greatest accomplishments?
Absolutely. My dad signed me up for martial arts. We saw the original Karate Kid movie. I think that was around 1986. And I started off in super traditional karate, Shotokan karate, where they teach the classes mostly in Japanese. And it was more kata based, more traditional kata based, although I always loved the kumite. And so I started competing by the age of 7. And to be real honest, I wasn't that good because the school I went to was mostly kata based. And so I started around the age of 13 or so with the Eubanks. Everyone's familiar with Ken and Marty Eubanks and Brian Ruth and all the guys that were coming up in that stable of Western Kentucky. It was pretty close to where I lived. So I started outsourcing, going there to get my sparring training. And I had some success as a junior competitor. We were real poor, so I mostly had to stay to like a regional circuit. We couldn't afford to get out on NASCA very much. And so fast forward the story, I got out of the Marine Corps in my 20s and started back trying to run the NASCA circuit. And by the age of my younger 30s, I was a number 1 ranked guy a couple years in a row. Was heavyweight fighter, and I fought on all the major stages and venues, from Battle of Atlanta to US Open to, well, you name it, just wherever. I fought everywhere, and have the nice honor of still being fairly athletic and competing. So I've kind of fought the majority of the old guys and the majority of the younger guys today. But I'm starting to be a little bit more cautious about entering open weights and stuff like that now, because like I know when there's 50 guys, I think this last year at the AKAs, I'm like, hell no, I'm not going to stand there and let these guys tear me up, So starting to get a little self-aware about the situation.
That's awesome. Well, hey, good for you. You're still out there competing. You're still doing your thing. And, by the look on your face and the passion in your voice, you still love what you do. You're still having a great time, and, keep going as long as you can, right? Till the wheels fall off.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Mr. K, let's talk about your experience. I know you've got some experience in several different areas of sport karate or competitive karate, being in karate combat as well as the extreme martial arts world. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, biggest accomplishment, man. I mean, it sounds kind of silly and cheesy, but the biggest accomplishment for me was watching my son crush it on the stage at the US Open. For me, like the dad moment, you know what I'm saying? I started training martial arts when I was 5. I've been able to compete all over the world. I've won world titles with, NASCA, NBL, WKC, all that stuff. I used to fight a ton. And then as I got older, I started gravitating more toward the forms and weapons and the tricking stuff. Won some titles with that. Karate Combat was brand new. It was in their first season. They were like, hey, this dude can do some crazy stuff. Let's bring him on. So for me to switch gears from point fighting to full contact, it was like a totally different world. But that's been really cool. I've had a few fights with them. I'm looking at taking another one here soon. So just kind of like the shift in my career from where I, started, similar to Josh, very traditional based, very, all the classes, we were at Korean martial arts school, but all the classes were done in Korean, from attention to the bow in to the warm-ups, the stretches, the techniques, everything. But seeing the evolution of the sport has been really, really cool. I love when I have, people come up to me and message me on social media or at tournaments and say like, oh, you inspired me, or you're one of my favorite competitors. That stuff's huge for me. So I love that. But the biggest thing for me has to be being a dad and watching my kid get up there and do his thing. Like that's been the biggest, like coolest high as far as being a competitor, is seeing like the next generation and where he's going to take it. I don't know if you guys got to see or not. I know Jason, you did, but at the last Karate Combat fight in Miami, they actually had him perform in the pit, which was really cool. And just to give you the short version of that story, he didn't even know he was doing that. We were so unprepared, no uniform, no belt. I was just taking him. It was his first live fight to watch. And one of the owners was saying, hey man, you got to keep training in martial arts, because one day if you can learn how to do all those cool flips and tricks and stuff, you could perform like your dad. And we're like, well, actually, but he saw a video of some of the stuff Jet does. And he's like, dude, can you do that tonight in the finals? Or in the fight. This is a few hours before the show, So he's nervous. And they say, hey, listen, we're going to, we'll just record it before the fight starts. We're not going to air it live. And we may or may not use it for social media content. So we get there. They change the plan now. And they're like, we're actually going to air it in front of the audience live. But we're just going to record it during the commercial break. Don't worry, it won't be live. If it goes live, it's in front of like 2 million people or something crazy. So he's like the anxiety's building and building and building, right? And then about 30 seconds before he walks on, they're like, hey, we're going to go live. We're going to air this thing. And he's just like, but he got out there, he performed, he crushed it, man. I'm so proud of him. And like to see those little moments, like that kid's surpassing me in his career already, and he's only 9. You know, it's like, it's cool. So the dad moment in me, I guess, is the proud moments.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to tell you, Kevin, I got to see your son perform at Karate Combat, and that was
let's go,
man. I was so excited about that too. I was like, I know that guy.
Well, yeah, Kevin messages me and he says, "Hey, turn on Karate Combat. Jet's going live in a few minutes." I'm like, "What?" And I forget what I was doing at that moment, but I just grabbed my phone, I clicked it on, and like I stopped everything. My family's going, "What's going on? I'm like, Jet's on. So cool. He's on Karate Combat right now." We all sat there watching it on my phone, and we're like cheering for him. It was so awesome. Those moments, guys. Listen, as instructors, right? I never had the success in tournaments or sport karate that any of you had, but I know that as a younger student and competitor, I love to compete. I love to get out to the tournaments. But what really made it special for me was when I started coaching, when I started watching my students compete. And for me, I think that's the best accomplishment is when I can help others to achieve success or reach their goals. And so I want to ask you guys, what are your thoughts on making the transition, and maybe not the transition, but being able to switch gears from being the competitor to being the coach, right? What are your thoughts, Mr. Townsend?
So I think first and foremost, you got to put your ego at the door, because when you're a competitor, your ego kind of grows, and it's like, oh yeah, I like the way this feels. For me, the journey was I wanted to be a great martial artist, and then I realized at some point, man, I really want to earn my black belt. I want to be a good competitor. I want to be a good teacher, and it all, it's kind of been a path that I followed, and I think for me, God guided that path. Like, He kept me on track, and I think that. I did a lot of competing in 2008. I finished that year with the World Ultimate title again. And people are like, hey, you're going to come back next year. And someone have to think about it. There were some older competitors that were competing. I felt bad sometimes. It's like, they're still out here like way older than me trying to prove themselves. And my thought process became kind of like you're talking about, can I pass this on? Can I pass it to another generation? And so, we've been able to generate close to 60 world titles out of our schools. And that's been probably one of the biggest gifts, like Kevin, you were saying, passing that on to the next generation. People ask me, why don't you compete? And I'm like, I wanted to give room for my guys to move on and go do better than me. Right. So I think taking your ego out of the way, kind of shifting your mindset, using your experiences to help them to grow, shorten their learning curves. There's a lot to it. But I think probably for most competitors, and maybe I'm just speaking for me, is the ego. Leave it at the door and come in and pour into those guys and let them be better than you. And sometimes that's hard in our mind, like, but also proud.
Well, how awesome is it that, our instructors paved the way for us, right? They poured into us and allowed us to have success and to reach our goals. And then for us to be able to pay that forward and give that to our students, and in some of our cases to our own children. I mean, because like Kevin, I have a son who is a martial artist who he's getting ready to test for a 4th degree black belt. He started when he was 2 years old. I never ever thought that he would teach at the martial arts school. He kept saying, "No, Dad, no, it's kind of not for me." And then like light bulb turns on, and now he's actually telling me every day, "Dad, is this what you felt when you taught? Because I taught this kid a new technique today, and his eyes lit up, and he's just explaining all these feelings that we have." And I'm like, This is it, son. This is what I felt all these years with you. And now you have that gift to pass on, and just keeping that, moving forward. But I think, it's one of the best things about martial arts, in my opinion, is how this we keep paying it forward and keep pouring into each other. And as we're doing now, I think we're all taking a moment to highlight each other in certain ways and elevate each other. Right. But this also gives room, like Mr. Townsend said, for our team now. We're going to pour into them and we're going to highlight them. And so, Mr. Smith, what are your thoughts on the coach or the competitor to coach transition in your brain?
Well, I first want to start by pre-framing that the majority of really good competitors do not make very good coaches. And we can see that historically through, just look at any of your top guys and who they've produced or that they go on and be successful and have competition teams and so on and so forth. And it's really weird because now I own several martial arts schools and I hire guys. And because I'm a sport karate guy, I always want to hire sport karate guys. And I can tell you that more often than not, that has not worked out very well. These guys are not good coaches. And the reason why, though, because I want to get to the solution. My point wasn't to be like slinging something bad on these people. It's that we see things in life. Psychology has proven that we see life through our own perspective. And we can't help but to see it that way. So when you're a super high-end competitor, ultra talented, the gradient is so steep of where you're at. But a lot of times the average person that falls into like the 80-20 principle, 80% of people are just moderately skilled at best. They don't have the killer instinct. They're maybe not God's gift to athletic ability and all of these things. So when you couple all that up, that's kind of the average Joe. And so years of teaching prior to me really trying to produce competitors really helped me, because I started with the little overweight 5-year-old kid that was not athletic and all of this. So years and years of it being in those trenches and seeing that allowed me to know kind of what the physical limitations or where the hurdles would be and all of these things. So I was able to work out a lot of those kinks, and it really helped me as a coach too, as the other gentlemen have already talked about, of having my own children. And that's been a complete game changer of me coaching my own children. But to fast forward to today, I'm around 10 years in business open. And like this year, between my 4 locations, we've got over like 100 and something kids on our traveling competition team that go to tournaments. And, we're primarily a fighting school, and our kids win quite a bit. So they're pretty good, but it has taken a while to get there. And I would say on average, your best coach is not always your best. Most often, actually, it's not your best competitor.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Mm. Well, I'm going to have another question in just a minute to follow up after this, but let me let Mr. K jump in and weigh in on the coach versus competitor mentality.
Yeah, it's totally different. I mean, the standard that we hold ourselves to has to be different than the standard we hold our students to, right? And as far as the business goes, it's almost 3 different hats you have to wear. So if there's any school owners watching, number one, you got to be a good martial artist. If you're not a good martial artist, you're not credible. You need to train more than your students. That's incredibly important, right? Number 2, you got to be able to teach it, coach it, break it down. Because if you can't teach it, not everyone that can do it can teach it. Exactly like Josh said, it takes a very special martial artist to be able to teach it and effectively get your students to do it. And then number 3, the third hat you got to wear is you got to be good at business. You can be a black belt in martial arts. You can be a phenomenal instructor, but be a white belt in business and not be able to be successful. So it's all kind of different things. For me, as my son started competing, I kind of stepped away from NASCA for a lot of years. So any of the younger NASCA competitors that are watching now, might not know me, but I came back because my kid was competing. My son started competing, and he's like, "Dad, let's do it together." It started out as his first tournament. He was nervous. He's like, "Well, I'll do it if you do it." So I kind of got out there, and then it kind of became a thing again. I started competing with him. But, I have 2 boys that compete now. And when I go to these NASCA tournaments now, it's crazy because I might be on ring 1 in the stage. At the same time, he's in ring 64, somewhere completely on the other end. And we're going at the same time, and I'm running back and forth. Plus, I have students there. Plus, I have a team there. So I have to juggle being dad, coach, competitor, all this stuff. So this year, as I've mentioned before, it's kind of my last year competing as far as sport karate stuff goes, full contact goes. I'm going to zone in just specifically on my students now. And making that transition's been a little bit interesting for sure, but it's good because it's a selfless transition. It's learning to give back to the art. It's giving back to the students that need your expertise. And I believe every good instructor's goal should be to make the next generation better than you. Right? If you're a good instructor, your goal should be that your students are better than you. And when you get to that level where your students are starting to outgrow you, that's a good thing. That's a really good thing, right? So
absolutely. I love that you bring that up. I think that's so important because, as Mr. Townsend was talking earlier about, ego, right? Sometimes our ego gets so big that people don't want their students to get better, because if their students get better than them, then they're not good enough. And it's really, the opposite. I mean, I think that the better instructor you are, the better your students surpass you, because, we do cut down on the learning curve. I mean, we had to grind it out in our time just to give them, it took us 3 years. It takes them 1 year, to get it. But Here's a question. This is, maybe a little controversial, but come on, sport karate competitors, right? All of us are traditional martial artists at heart, right? I mean, we were martial artists first, and then we got into the competition, right? You see shows like Dance Moms, and you got the little league players that dad is just so into it that like you can tell dad wants it more than their kid wants it. As sport karate competitors, coaches, and school owners, how do you curb that diva type attitude from your competitors when all they're focused on is winning and they just want to be better, and it gets cutthroat? And I think you guys know what I'm talking about, right?
Oh,
you get these students that just they kind of forget where they came from, right? So Mr. Townsend, what you want to weigh in on this first?
Yeah, I will. I don't have a whole lot to add to this piece because none of our schools are competition schools. We never were. And so there was kind of a misperception out there because I ended up getting some ESPN time. Then my wife came along and won 3 world titles in breaking. And then we had some students that did the same. Everyone thinks, oh gosh, all y'all do is break boards and compete. And it's like, actually 99.9% of our time is running our schools, running our business, coaching our students, and being the martial artist first, the teacher second, the business person third. And if you do those things in that order with that priority, the business will fly if you do it right with the right heart. So yeah, I don't really have a whole lot to add to that. I've had some great students, and we beat our students, not literally, but figuratively, over the head with, humility and, remembering where you come from and loyalty and all of these things. So I've had some competitors get to very high levels and never really had any diva issues with them particularly. So I would defer to probably Kevin and Josh more in this area because they have much more experience with taking their students to these events. We used to take our demo team and compete at the U.S. Open. They made it to the top 2 or 3 several years, and so I've had a lot of competitors, but just hasn't been the drive of our business. And in my life and journey, just real quick, we're at a place now where I spend a ton of my time building my team. I do chief instructor trainings with our chief instructors twice a week, pouring into their leadership, their development, their martial arts development, and kind of constantly dripping karate candy on them to grow them. Because what I feel like we're in a place now is reaching out and helping young instructors and school owners improve their situation and live a life that impacts their communities in a positive way and do something that they can love. And for us, serve God at the end of the day, because that's where our gifting is added on the mat and in martial arts. So that's kind of where we are now, is really focused on building that model to help those guys shorten their learning curve to having a great living, doing something that really makes an impact.
That's awesome. I love that. Well, Mr. K, do you have anything to add to the diva situation?
Oh yeah, we have divas, man. We don't need more, but we have. I've had quite a few I won't mention, but I got quite a few NASCAR world champions.
Oh, you're not gonna say names? No, I'm kidding.
Nah, I usually love it.
I'm kidding.
I'm gonna be PC on this show. No, usually, man, we had problems in the past where it's people that they want to go jump on whoever's the biggest name, whoever's the star guy at the time, and they're quick to leave you, and you grow them up and you train them, right? And then you start bringing them to these events, and they're as quick as they can. They want to try to jump on somebody else for private lessons, whatever, stab you in the back, leave you, try to act like they're their student. And it's like, man, I got you, your black belt. I groomed you. I took you in when you were 5 and had no coordination. I took you in when you were right. So I've been burnt many, many times. I've learned to take my ego out of it and realize that that's on them. That's not on me. And we've actually changed the culture of our school. And like how I'm supposed to be the leader of our school, I try to be a well-rounded martial artist. You know what I mean? To me, it's not just about NASCA. I tell people, I'm a sport karate person, but I'm also a traditional martial artist. I also do self-defense. We also do, we do like a little bit of everything, kind of like how I compete. I can do forms, weapons, point fighting. I go jump into full contact. I try to teach these guys that tournaments are only a small piece of the pie. Yeah. You want to be a well-rounded martial artist, not a partial artist. And if your whole focus is on just tournaments and competing, you're missing the point of what it truly means to be a martial artist. So to me, I've really tried to change the culture of our school, over the last decade or so. And we don't have as many divas now. People are pretty quick. They understand, they learn what's expected, what's not expected. But in the past, when you do have people like that, for any school owners or people that are watching, I would say remove those people. It doesn't matter if they're a good paying member. It doesn't matter how great the martial artist is. It doesn't matter how great the competitor is. That one bad seed, can be like a cancer in your school. And it's best to just remove people that are not part of your culture. So super important. But Josh, you have any takes on it?
Yes, and I have a little unique spin. Really, I'm just going to add a little twist here. Everything that the other two gentlemen have already said, but Jason was also hinting around of like, I'm the best. It's not that they're the best. I'm telling you what I'm running into is that I deal with, in far and large, with people that do not have killer instincts, that want to be competitors. So it's the opposite of what you just said. It's not that they're divas. It's that they're poor old me, and I can't win. My teacher said winning doesn't matter. Winning, it's just about having fun. My mom said so. And so I'm fighting against this culture of trying to make men and tough kids and competitors and all this stuff. And see, I'm a former Marine, and I've been a NASCAR competitor my whole life. So all I think about is winning. I was the kind of guy that can pick up a second place medal, and I have to fight against that too, because I have to celebrate third place victories with my students. And so I'm coming from a place, I already said we see through our perspective, and I'm coming from a place that doesn't always connect well because I'm a competitor in my heart. And the only thing that matters sometimes, I know this is live, but I hate to admit it, all I can think about is winning in business. And so I'm coming from that place.
You got to, though.
Everything we do in life is a competition. It's a competition to get to the
100.
table first. It's a competition.
Life in the neighborhood.
See, this is why I knew I had to have you guys on here today.
You want to date that person? It's a competition because 10 other people do too. It's like, and the whole world of everybody gets a trophy. And we do in-house tournaments amongst our affiliates and our groups. Absolutely not. First, second, and third place. You lose, go home and suck it up. So I get you're on the same, Josh. So I have a prosthetic eye. My dream was to be a Marine, either Marine Recon or Navy SEAL. I went to a Marine recruiter when I was 17, and he said, "You're unfit to be a Marine." So he told me. I had, as a 17-year-old cocky black belt, I had some choice things to say to him, and we actually became friends. And he apologized to me. He's like, "I'm really sorry. I wish I could have you." And I was like, "Well, I wish you could too. That's my dream." But anyway, man, I love your mindset, Josh. Keep it up, man. Keep driving. Competition is important in our life. Everything. Adversity sharpens us. Competition sharpens us. It's huge. But if I can ask a quick question, like Kevin and Josh, I'm sorry, Mr. Jason, and you too. I'm going to venture to say, even at our highest point of being perceived as competitive, only maybe 5% or less of our students are competition. So as martial arts school owners and business people, it's important that we cater to that 90 to 95% that don't want competition. I want that mom and dad that are solid and have a good family and can pay their bills and want to be here and want self-defense. You know what I mean? So what are your guys' take on that? Can I ask that question, Jason? Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I'll answer it with, I was going to share an experience that I had. And this was many years ago, when I was very new as a school owner, right? I was a very traditional martial artist. We did traditional Tong Soo Do, nothing outside of that. That was the end all be all, right? And so I remember bringing in some guest instructors, and they were part of a pretty popular performance team at the time. And so I had students that gravitated towards that, right? Well, they started competing, and then before I knew it, I would see them less and less in class, and then they were gone. And I'm like, did I make a mistake? Like bringing in that guest instructor and introducing this. And at the time I was insulted. At the time I was like, am I not good enough? And what I really had to look at was, am I giving my students all that they need, but also am I giving them what they want? Right? Because everybody comes to us for a different reason in martial arts. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think you're right. What 90 to 95% of students don't care about competition. But after that experience, I really looked at my program and I looked at my offerings and I looked at what we were doing. And I said, I'm not giving enough. I'm not giving enough outlets. I was watching black people get to black belt and leave. And there was nothing else. And I said, I can't have that. I don't want that. I want them to be lifelong learners. I want them to have opportunities, right? And so we expanded our program and what we built into our curriculum. And so, to answer that, not everybody's going to want to compete, but I want to provide opportunity for those that do want to compete, those that do like to perform, those that do want to become leaders, instructors, and create several different paths within my school so that like a college major, right? When you get your black belt, what do you want to major in? You want to major in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? You want to major in Krav Maga? Do you want to major in sport karate? Do you want to demo team, leadership? And I had to expand. So now I have to have leaders within my school that could manage this and make this happen. So, that's kind of how I handle that whole situation, is that in the beginning, I was very against doing anything about it. It's like, no, if you want that, this is good enough. This is all there is. That's the way I was taught.
Right.
And then, I think I blossomed. I think I changed from there. So there's my answer. I hope that adds to what you were asking. What do you think, Mr. K?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's our job to effectively empower them to pick paths that best suit them. Like you said, not everybody's going to want to compete. Well, not everyone's going to want to spar. It doesn't mean that you can't spar. You can't get your black belt and not spar. Jeff Doss, shout out to the GOAT. What's up, sir?
Mm-hmm.
Joining in. Hey, not everyone's going to want to do forms. Not everyone's going to see the purpose in it. They just want to fight, right? But not everyone's going to want to fight. Like, I think it's good that we have variety of different things. We let them experience different things. There's some things that are non-negotiable in our culture. Like, you have to spar. You have to do forms. You have to do these things to get your black belt. But like you said, it's more than being a martial arts school. We're more of an academy where we have different programs that they can go into. People that want to do the extreme martial arts and stuff can. People want to compete. Maybe you want to be on a leadership team. Maybe you like to perform, but you don't want to compete. Some kids don't like to they don't like to compete. They don't like the competitiveness and but they like to perform. So we have a demo team, right, where they get to perform. They have that outlet, right? We do kickboxing, we do jiu-jitsu, we do all kinds of different things, but now we're launching a brand new MMA program. So like we try to offer different things within our studio to keep those guys engaged. But the one thing that I always try to tell, I think originally Mr. Chip was asking about 5% you're saying or so want to compete, and then 95 don't. I tell that 5% that are like your elite level athletes that want to compete, it's your job to be leaders in the school and to help that 95%, because without the 95, you can't do what you love to do. Mm-hmm. Without the 95% showing up to pay the bills, do the classes, like they're the ones that are helping you live your dream and be here. So it's important that 5% steps up and that they're leaders and they help grow that next generation as well.
Absolutely, 100% agree. We do the same thing. We have demo team, we have leadership team, we have competition availabilities through the year. So we do the same thing. But I was kind of being the devil's advocate in there, in that as a business owner, sometimes we do need to take care of that other group, because they're the ones a lot of times that, like you said, allow that 5% the opportunity, but that's not the core of our group. The competitors, if that makes sense.
Yeah. What's up, Coach Frank? Yeah, I agree 100%. I think if you try to be a school that's just specifically catering to that 5%, it's very, very hard to survive.
Right.
And I want to add to that a little bit, and then let Mr. Smith jump in here. But we all agree that being competitive is important, right? We all agree that being competitive, the most important person that we compete with every single day is the person we look at in the mirror. Right. And so going back to what Josh started to talk about a little bit, having the challenge of pulling that inner, that inner beast out of the people, pulling that competitive spirit, being competitive and having that competitive spirit can be very powerful in our growth. Right. If we don't have that competitive spirit in us and try to raise our level, then we all know that if we're not growing, we're regressing, and all of our skills, our skills can diminish. Every skill that we have physically is a diminishable skill if we don't keep it sharp and we don't practice. So one of the things that I really try to instill in my students is, you may not like to compete. You may not want to go to a tournament, but what I want you to do is I want you to come to class and I want you to try to be better than you were yesterday. Yeah. Right? No matter how much better than yesterday, I want you to be better than yesterday, because when it goes back to, the value of our program, when a parent is watching their child take martial arts and they're just as good at a red belt as they were when they were a blue belt. I mean, what are they sticking around for? There's no growth. I mean, they're going through the motions. They're staying busy, but they're not growing. They're not improving. And so I just think that, it is good to develop that competitive spirit in our students, no matter what, whether they want to go to a tournament, but I mean, hey, when we have games in class, like, have the will to win, want to win.
Yes.
Right. Not, oh, well, I mean, and at the same time, be happy for your friends when they win. I mean, we did go to a tournament not too long ago. One of my favorite parts was that every time one of our students, and then it became some of the other students, every time they would come back for performing, my kids were high-fiving every kid. Like, great job. And I'm like,
yeah,
whoa. And I didn't say anything, right? Like, I didn't, like, they weren't told to do that. They started doing this. I have one kid in particular, Anthony. This kid is just, he's going to be something phenomenal, right? As an instructor, as a competitor, but he's out there high-fiving all the kids and congratulating them. And then he takes third place, and he tried hard, but he first thing he does is shake the first place, winner's hand. And I was like, dude, do you have any idea how many adults could never do that because their ego's so engaged that, oh, damn it, I lost, but, so I think I'm rambling a little bit, but I think you guys get the point on where I'm going.
I think that's a reflection of the culture you developed in your school, which is fantastic. We preach all the time because we have tons of meetings and leadership team meetings and stuff. It's unwavering support. If you're not going and someone else is, you're supporting them 100%. And so I love that. That's one of the things I actually love about sport karate tournaments.
Yep.
There's very little, I don't want to say ego, but there's a super supportive feel when you go there, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter who you are. Someone's coming around going, whoa, we're proud of you. That was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And that is such a powerful thing in that sport karate, world. And I love that piece. So anyway.
I know Josh has some good stuff to add, but the one thing I wanted to say real quick, just to add to what Jason said, is, the competitiveness is important, that we build competitiveness in students, because we're always competing. You're competing in life, you're competing for the job, you're competing for the girl, like whatever it is, right? Like, that's life, yo. Like, figure it out. That's life. But outside of that, another thing that's really important, Jeff has a great comment. I love that. Yes, sir. Absolutely. Is outside of just the competitiveness that you get from being a competitor, right? From competing tournaments, you also learn good sportsmanship. You learn how to lose. You learn how to be respectful to other people. You learn how to be humble. You learn how to make friends, right? Like, they're not staring at screens. Like, they're getting out and they're being physical, and they're meeting other kids from other states and building relationships. Like, there's so much that comes out of competing that's not just trying to win. So I think that's important too, right?
I agree.
The character development is huge.
I love it. Hey, Mr.
Josh?
Smith, jump back in here. I know we kind of bounced around. Don't want to leave you hanging. So jump in on this.
So one of the business lessons that I give to all of my team members, not like competitive team members, but my employees, is that the upward pyramid, and I usually would draw this out on a diagram for them. And so we start our members off as basic training members. 80-90% of people who come in sign up for our entry-level program, which is just it's our basic core curriculum. There's no sparring, no weapons, no grappling into that program. So 80 or 90% go there. And then our objective is that within 6 months, no more than 12 months, is to upgrade them to the next level of training. So if you can imagine my pyramid here, we're moving them up. And the goal for every one of my studios is to have 80% or greater of the members into the black belt training program, which has our sparring, grappling, and weapons program incorporated into that training. And then from there, the next upward trajectory is that top 5% that these gentlemen have already spoken about today. And that's our competition team up at the top. And so obviously we're not going to focus our whole business on this top of this pyramid. We're going to try to create this. And how we do this is through our culture. Now, a kid that comes in, they don't know if they want to do kata or grappling or sparring or tournaments and all these things. And so my job as a leader is to provide the culture and the energy. Well, you do need to do these things because I believe in it like oxygen, and all the great lessons that come from tournaments. You need to learn this. Yeah, you don't want to do it probably because you don't like losing. You don't have confidence, blah, blah, blah. And that's exactly why you need to do the tournaments. And so I'm always preaching that, but it's not just some sales gimmick because I don't make money off tournaments. That's some other man's tournament. Like, I'm doing it because I believe in the life lessons that go into it. And so I believe it like religion, like I believe in Jesus, like I believe in air. Like so I preach this and a little bit different. I do run competition-based schools. And it was my mission when I set out to be a school owner to prove to the industry that you could in fact marry competition and business principles together and still run profitable schools, and that you could in fact scale it. That'd be a whole different podcast for me to tell you about that journey. But I have in fact now opened 4 of these that are competition based. And so I've scaled it, and I very much preach competition. Awesome. That's my whole gist.
Yeah. Well, I love it, guys. Thank you. Thank you for answering. We've answered a couple questions so far, and we're really getting a lot of good stuff here. I want to thank Mr. Cox. Mark Cox is on. Jeff Doss. Thank you so much. Everybody that's on here. I would love to hear, if you're watching, if you have a question that you want these sport karate competitors to answer, so that we can cater a little bit more to our audience today. So if you're watching live, please let us know if you have a question. Please put it in the comments. I think Mr. Townsend already had a chance to ask his question. So Mr. Smith, why don't you ask a question for the group? Put you on the spot, didn't I?
Yeah, absolutely. With no forward thinking about it, but that's okay. So let's, Mr. Townsend, can you just give us a brief, like 2-minute overview? I know you've got like a federation of schools, and you're fairly well known in our industry. And can you just tell us kind of how you arrived at building your federation and maybe the culture that surrounds it?
Okay, so very quickly, I do want to share that Team Chip was not a vanity name, but Team Chip was a name that kind of we stumbled on. I had to fill out an ESPN biography one time, and my team was sitting with me, a bunch of my black belts that were helping me, and I said, it's asking for a team name. And anyway, so it's not hugely relevant, but it kind of is. But someone screamed out, Team Chip, and I said, no way, man. And they were like, yeah, just write it down. So I wrote it down. A couple of years later, it's scrolling across ESPN screens, right? And there's a disconnect between the name of our school at that time and Team Chip. So we took that and we turned that into an acronym. It's teachable, excellent, accountable, motivated, courteous, honest, inspirational, and persevere. I love acronyms. So we have several of them, but we turned that into an acronym, and we filter all of our decisions and all the things we do kind of through those things. Am I being teachable, making this decision? Am I accountable to my people? All of these things, right? But through exposure, we were just very blessed, okay, in the right place at the right time. I want to think it was hard work, but it's never my doing. It's his. But I started having people reach out and go, hey, can we be a part of your organization or a part of your school? And we did not have the infrastructure to do that. So over the last several years, as I've kind of veered more into, and back to Kevin, he made a comment earlier I wanted to point out real quick, train more than your students. I was on the mat for an hour this morning. I train nonstop. So I'm a much believer in lead by example, be the general at the front of the charge, right? But we didn't have the infrastructure to do anything. So in 2011, I wanted a new challenge. I felt like our school was a little plateaued. So I drove 80 miles and slept 4 nights a week on a couch and built another location. And I did that to challenge myself and challenge my team some. I eventually grew some team members, moved them down there. Now we have 2 corporate schools. And then as people were reaching out to me saying, hey, how can we be a part of your organization and what you do? We developed an affiliate program. Sorry, I'm trying to be fast. And so basically it's kind of a coaching program where we allow them to use our curriculum. And I coach them on Zoom, online. I go to their locations at least once a year to work with them and their students. And so it's a great program. We're about to put our foot on the gas pedal of that program and try to improve it. Actually, one of our affiliates is commenting right now. So, but anyway, with that said, hope that answered your question, but we do have an affiliate program where you can be an affiliate member with Team Chip. And then we help to shorten your learning curve on the business and even on the mat side as well. So.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Jason. I didn't mean for that to be a commercial, but that was a good question. I appreciate the question.
I love it. Great question. Great answer. Great information. And, you have one of your affiliates on here right now, testifying to what a great thing it is. So I love it. Absolutely great. If anybody,
teamchipaffiliate.com, by the way, if anybody's curious. So
there you
go take a look. Sorry, shameless plug, but
boom. Love it. Hey guys, again, anybody watching live, please post your questions. We got about 15 minutes left, so we got plenty of time. But Josh, did you want to ask anybody else a specific question?
No.
Okay. Cool. Mr. K, why don't you ask your question?
My question be, because you guys have all been around the martial arts industry for so long, and you guys have seen so much and done so much. We all have. What is the biggest takeaway or the biggest thing you've learned as a martial arts? Could be a competitor, could be a coach, could be a school owner. What is the biggest like golden nugget you think that you've learned in your martial arts career or journey? That's kind of what my question would be, because I think there's a lot of people. I'll keep talking for a minute to let you think. But I think there's a lot of people that are probably watching that could probably get some of that knowledge. You know, there's a lot of martial artists, there's a lot of instructors or coaches or school owners that could be watching this. If you could give one golden nugget, what's your biggest thing that you've learned? Yes, sir.
Mine is don't try to reinvent the wheel, and find someone that has done it and does it better than you and learn from them. Because I think in most cases, well, I'll speak for myself. When I opened my school, my first thought was, I can go and do it better.
Yeah.
I'm going to take what I did and I'm going to go do it better. And you want to know what's funny is I find myself coming back to what I originally learned anyway and doing it, maybe doing it slightly different from the experience that I learned. But like I got rid of things that I didn't need to get rid of. I added things that I didn't need to add. I was trying to make it my own instead of taking what someone did and learning from it. I was just fortunate to have a lot of great mentors. Mike Metzger, as far as business goes, taught me everything that changed everything about my school. Yeah. So, I mean, you asked for the one thing, don't reinvent the wheel. Find someone that did it or does it better than you, learn for them and implement.
Yeah. So you're saying, since this is a sport karate podcast, if you don't know how to teach sport karate and you want sport karate, they should look at the Raptor program, is what you're saying.
See it?
Shameless.
Boom, another plug.
Just saying. Hey, listen, raptorkarate.com.
Oh, man. Off the rails.
I'm typing it in right now.
All right, I love it. Mr. Townsend, what's your biggest golden nugget, sir? The biggest thing that you've learned in your journey in the martial arts?
All right, man. I'll try to be quick here. Thanks, Kevin. And by the way, raptor.com, get it. So for me, when I first took over my martial arts school, 1995, 50 students, hole in the wall, rented space, nothing. We lived upstairs for 9 years to make it work, kind of thing, right? Wow. And yeah. And so with that said, people with no malintent or bad intentions will drag you down. Whenever you say things like, "Hey, I'm gonna try X or do X," don't allow that to drag you down. And what I mean is, let's just say, for instance, that next week I tell my friend, "Hey, I'm going to go over to the north side of town and open a flower shop." And immediately, instead of looking at me and saying, "Holy cow, how cool is that? Is there anything I can do to help you?" They look at you and they say something like, "What do you know about flowers? Do you know the north side of town is probably not the best location?" And there's no bad intent, right? And so I think one of the biggest things I learned is to hear those people and understand there might be some nuggets I need to pay attention to, but not to be drugged down by that. Does that make sense? Not let that get my mind in a hole, in a rut. And I think the last thing I'll say is every day, someone commenting, what's a training day like in the life of you guys? Every day I get up, I train, and I read my Bible, and I think that's huge. So, God first, keep him in your mind, keep him in your business, keep him in your heart, and make sure you stay focused on that. That's probably my biggest lesson. He comes first. And at the end of the day, if I can guide one of these little kids back to Jesus, then I've done my job. You know what I mean? Whether they're world-class or not, but at the end of the day, the biggest thing we can do in our life is bring people not back, but bring them to Jesus, if that makes sense. Because that's what we're called to do. The Great Commission, right? Sure. Two commands: love God above all else, and love your neighbor as you love yourself. One of the hardest things in the world to do. And remember that even my enemies are my neighbor, right? And so with that said, that's the biggest lesson, I guess. But and the reason I say that was a lesson for me is because in the beginning, I didn't know if I was supposed to be here. You know what I mean? It took me several years to go, okay, God, I think this is where you want me at. I'm comfortable with it. And I still some days wake up and go, am I doing what you want from me? Right. So anyway, I'll park that there. I think that's the biggest one. But the other thing is, don't let the negativity, the unintentional negativity of your friends pull you into a rut and drag you off track.
Mm-hmm.
I love how you're using your gift and your talent that you've been given to serve. Like, that's amazing. So,
and I would love to clarify too, please. We don't preach on the mat. We're very open about who we are and what we believe. But I don't force anything on anyone. And if I have students come in that are of different beliefs, and as long as it's not disruptive to our culture like anybody else, we love them. We want them here. And so we try to be very cautious with that, not overbearing. Anyway, I hope that makes sense. I'm not at the pulpit every day, but we're teaching, we're running hard. And when the conversation is, when the opportunity opens the door, we step right in that door.
I love it.
Thank you. Mr. Smith,
Yes,
you want to jump in on that question from Mr. K?
Sure. And that was your best plug, Chip, better than the other plug. So that's good.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, and to keep congruency with a message that I've already sort of talked about today is seeing things through your own perspective. And what I'm about to say really doesn't have anything to do with sport karate so much, but more of like the industry. So when I first started in business, I was failing miserably, and I was going to Las Vegas to the Century Super Show. And I still remember that I went to someone, I don't even remember who the presenter was, but I'm sitting in this presentation and
Probably Jason Flame.
Probably Jason.
No, I'm just
And so the presenter asked for us to get our pen and paper, and they presented the top 10 reasons that people sign up for martial arts. They had actually performed somehow, some way, a statistical study and had data of asking hundreds, if not thousands of people, the top reasons listed 1 through the number 10 of reasons they sign up for martial arts. And I'm like, what kind of stupid question is this? Of course they sign up to kick people's ass, right? Self-defense. Boom. So I wrote it down. I was dead set. That was the reason. So they put it up and they showed the statistical analysis, the data that they had. And in fact, self-defense wasn't even in the top 3 or something. It was weird. I don't remember where it fell, but it was not in the top 3. And there were things like focus, discipline, a community, depending on if it was for a kid or adult, but there were some different things there. And I remember that blew my mind, but they had the data that could prove this. So it wasn't my opinion, and it wasn't even this guy's opinion. This was fact. And so I think it's so important that we don't always see everything in our martial arts business through our own perspective, because you could be very, very wrong. And today, I'm not really in the coaching space yet, but I do consult and talk with lots of other business owners. And 9 times out of 10, when the guys are failing miserably, it's because they're seeing things through their perspective, either as some hardcore self-defense martial arts guy or a competitor or whatever. And they're not really understanding the needs, wants, and desires of why their customers are coming to them. And that blew my mind. So that was probably the biggest, pivotal, game-changing aha moment that I had in my journey.
Well, isn't that what's awesome about this right now is we've got 4 different perspectives going on. A lot of things are running together, right? But I mean, I'm learning. I hope people that are watching right now are really soaking this in and listening, because we've got a lot of perspective here. You're in Tennessee, correct,
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Mm-hmm.
And Chip, you're in Texas.
Yes, sir.
Right? And Mr. K's in Colorado. I'm in California. I mean, we're all spread out, all from different spots, all started our businesses, different times, different level of businesses. And so, again, like being able to share this right here and get that different perspective is one of the reasons that I love offering a roundtable like this. And I picked you all for a reason, right? I think that you all had something very powerful and positive to add to this. So I'm just super appreciative for this call. And we still got a few more minutes, but I want to throw this up here, guys. This is not so much a question, but a comment. But one thing I noticed propels my daughter, who's a 7-year-old blue belt, to do more and shine is that when the instructors call her out in class to demonstrate or join the trick circle, as a parent on the sidelines trying to nudge her, she's reluctant. Whereas if an instructor does, she glows with confidence. I mean, and man, sometimes we forget the power of our persuasion or our confidence in our students. Parents come to me very often and say, how'd you get them to do that? Like, I can't get them to do this at home. And sometimes I just tell them, well, I believe in them. I knew they could. I knew they had it in them. And they do things in the karate school that maybe, where they feel comfortable and they feel, like they're surrounded by that support system. But also, again, I remind my young instructors how important they are to each one of these kids. These kids, students, look to the instructors like they are superheroes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, my teens, I'm like, guys, you may feel this when they're at school, they're teenagers. Of course, they've got some insecurities. They've got some challenges that they're working through. They've got all this peer pressure and stuff, right? But when they come to the karate school, they're looked at like they're up here. And they were, I talked to my son about this because, I told you he was 2 when he started. He just started teaching at 18, but like since he's been a teenager, I'm like, get out on the mat, and he just didn't have it in him yet. But now that he's teaching, he's like, Dad, I see the light bulb go off in their head. Yeah. I see when they get it. How he told me last night, one of the best things so far, and he's only been teaching for about a month, but he had a parent come up to him and say, I just really love how you get down to their level and you speak into their eyes and you speak into that kid. And he came home and he said, Dad, that was the best feeling in the world to have a parent tell me that they believed in me. And I was like, do you have any idea the power you have? Yeah. That's some serious power to make change, guys. So
I tell my instructors all the time. I tell my staff all the time. I'm like, at the end of the day, when I'm dead and gone, you probably heard me say this a million times. When I'm dead and gone at the end of my life, when it's over, right? Who's going to show up at that funeral and say, that dude mattered? He made an impact in my life. Like, that's what it's about, right? Like Mr. Townsend was talking about. That's what we're called to do, man. If we can help guide people, if we can save people, if we can help encourage people, if we can give them a little bit of confidence, and that's the most empowering thing about what we do. And I can't think of any other job, career, anything where you get to literally change lives the way we do in the martial arts world. Like, that's the coolest thing in the world, man. Like, that's what fires me up. That's what makes me want to get on that mat every single day and lead by example every single day, is we get to literally change lives. So I love that, man. That's huge.
Well, I'm going to put this up here. Jeff Curry asks, what does a training day in the life of these awesome competitors and leaders look like? So real quick, what's your training schedule look like? What's your day look like, Mr. Smith?
I am super disciplined with routine and habits. And I believe that habits and routine and discipline are 7 days a week. That means when I'm traveling around the world, some of y'all follow me, I might be in India or Africa or somewhere crazy. I'm still up. I'm running. I'm following my schedule, my workout routine. I have a morning ritual where I post it on my social pages. I check all of my business dashboards, all of my bank accounts, my investment accounts, because I need to see the scoreboard every day mentally. I check my weight. I pray, I meditate, I write my goals down in a journey. Like, this whole little process takes me like my first 2 hours of the morning, which starts at like 4 a.m., by the way. And then, and that's before I do anything. I even like how many cups of coffee I drink to eating only 4 eggs. I'm telling you, it's discipline to a T. And then I take my kids to school whenever they wake up. But I've done almost all of this stuff I'm telling you about prior to anyone else in my house waking up. And then I'm in bed by 9 o'clock. I believe in sleep discipline and to make sure your body properly rests. So I can't speak for everyone else, but for me, it's all about the habits, routines, and discipline.
100%. What about you, Mr. Chip?
Very similar. 4:20, the alarm goes off. I hit the ground. I train. I either do jiu-jitsu in the morning with my students and train with my students, or we have a fit class that we work out in and teach every day, Monday through Friday. And Saturday mornings at 7 a.m., I'm up with my team doing a chief instructor training with those guys. But every day I'm up, I train, I go back home. On most days, there are days you miss it, but and I hate breaking my ritual too. It's like, but I go back home, I pull out my Bible, I read a chapter from the New Testament, a chapter from the Old Testament, spend a little bit of time in prayer. I have a journal where I write a prayer every day. And if I don't write it, if I'm short on time, I'll read it from the prior day. And then, eat, then from a training perspective, go to work on the business. And then later in the afternoon and the evening, I go back in and work out again. So I typically work out a minimum of 2 hours a day physically. with some read time and rest time in between. And we become proponents. I hate to say this, we've become proponents of a nap in the middle of the day. So I try to get home and take like a 20-30 minute nap in the middle of the day too. And it kind of recharges the battery some for that evening run with the students in the building. So,
yep. Mr. K.
I love it, man. Very similar to what these gentlemen are talking about. Mine shifts a little bit differently depending on whether I'm in a fight camp or I'm just regular life, but I'm always disciplined. Same thing, up super early. The first thing I do as soon as my eyes crack open, before I even roll out of bed, I say a quick little prayer and thank God that I have another day, that I'm alive and I'm awake, right? And then I try to list off at least 10 things in my head that I'm grateful for, right? There's so many things that we can be grateful for that we do take for granted. We take simple things like running water, having clean water to drink. We take, you can go open your fridge, man, and have food in it. Like there's so many things that we take for granted here in this country. We're so spoiled that my kids have good health, right? All these things. I sit and try to list all these things because the first thing it does before I pop out of bed is it puts me in a positive mind state. It makes me think, okay, I get to have another day, right? A mentor of mine that I work with in the Raptor business, has this thing he calls the $1 million morning. Where he says, if I gave you $1 million, I'll just share this with you guys. If I gave you $1 million, how stoked would you be? You'd be pumped, right? Who wouldn't take $1 million? I'm gonna give. Let me 10 times that. I'm gonna give you $10 million. You'd be stoked, right? But there's one catch: you don't get to wake up tomorrow. Would you take the money? Nobody would take the money, right? Like that's crazy. Like $10 million, but I can't wake up tomorrow. I can't spend it. I can't enjoy it. Doesn't even make sense. So what you're saying is waking up in the morning is worth more than $10 million. And when you shift your perspective, like, man, I get another day. You start to look at things that you think are problems, like, oh, I have this rent I have to pay, I have this, I have that. You start to look at problems as like opportunities to solve solutions and like figure out different things. And like your whole perspective shifts because now you're thinking positively, right? So the first thing I always do, I crack my eyes open, I say a little prayer, I think of the 10 things that I'm grateful for. I get up, I write all my goals down for the day. I check my monthly goal list to make sure that my numbers I'm hitting, kind of like Mr. Josh was saying, you bust everything open, you look at all the stats, you figure out where you're at, where you need to pick up, where you're doing good, right? And then I'm always in the gym first thing in the morning, always in the gym. I train with my students. We have a morning class. Then I go to the gym and I get my fitness in. I lift some weights, I do some cardio, I move. Master Flame and I always send him a video wherever I'm at. I'm actually traveling. I'm out of state right now. I'm still hitting the gym. I'm still getting in the gym, and we keep that little accountability back and forth, right? And then
thank you for that.
Day, yeah, always.
Because sometimes
always.
I'm like, damn, he sent me that video again, and I'm running late. I'm always sending him the message. I'm on my way to the gym. But
you keep people accountable, man.
Well, so everybody here is an early riser, right? I'm just gonna kind of throw I do not do early mornings. I'm a night owl. I do not do early mornings. I'm a 7, 8 o'clock guy. But there's definitely times that I'm maybe a 9 or 10 o'clock start guy. But like I'm a 12 to 1 o'clock, right? So I still believe in my sleep, right? Because sleep is important, right? I get that. But mine kind of shifts, I remember when I was a brand new school owner, I wouldn't even get out of bed until like 12, 1 o'clock. I'm like, I don't have to be at the studio till 3. Like, what's the big deal? I don't have to be there till 3. So I'll get up, but having several businesses and that are in different, I have a restaurant and an ice cream shop and I do a lot of community service and volunteer work. And, so my schedule kind of fluctuates, a lot, but a lot of the things, some common things that all of us have, we all read. Everybody here is reading. Everybody here I know is reading, not only reading, something for leadership, but also reading the Bible. Everybody here is talking about being grateful, making a grateful list. I've done something for probably, I'm going to say like 10 years. I write out a victory list. I try to write out a victory list and at least one victory for every day. And that victory could be having lunch with my wife, scheduling time to have lunch with my wife or having a date night. Because, my relationship with my wife is super important, right? Married like a champ, right, sir?
Yes, 100%, baby.
I mean, so it's like even today, I'm like, we're gonna have lunch today, right? We can try. We'll fit. Let's fit that in. So but all of these things, our growth for ourselves, relationships with others, gratefulness. But like I said, I write this grateful list. If I go to a Chamber of Commerce meeting, that's a victory for me. That's something that I got to participate in. So anyway, I just throw that in there sometimes because I know people read and listen, and the 5 a.m. club or all that stuff. I've tried my damnedest to do it, but I love that late night. I love that late night. I'm up and I'm making my list. At the end of the night, I'm making my list for the next day. I'm checking my calendar for the next day. I got my to-do list, my priority list, my goals, all the things we were talking about, checking the scoreboard. Instead of doing that in the morning, I do it at night. And I'm like getting my head set because I can't go to sleep unless I got my day set. And then I wake up and I'm like, bam, let's go. Right. And my workout is usually very first thing, even though it might be at 9:30, that my workout is first. Because I know that if I don't do my workout first and I start getting busy in the office, start doing my stuff, it's like, I'll go to the gym in a little bit. Yeah, I'll go to the gym in a little bit. And then before I know it, now I'm teaching lessons. Now I'm in the school. Now I'm on the mat. I'll go to the gym after. No, I'm too tired. I don't want to go. So gym is always first for me. Have to get it in and get it done. And then training throughout the day. I do several day classes and private lessons. And I still, I love to work out as I'm teaching. Right. I love to just kind of be active because I'm constantly trying to demonstrate. But it helps me with my energy too. Like if you're just walking the mat and not really moving and doing stuff, it's like, right. So if I'm moving them, showing them, I think that's good for me. It's good for them too. So
yeah, again, leaders lead by example. The best way to lead is by example.
Absolutely.
Like you're teaching a side kick or a spinning back kick or whatever, and you get out there, you crack a few out, and people are like, "Oh, that's what it's supposed to look like."
Right.
Like show them what it's supposed to look like. What's up, Mr. Guido?
Yeah, I'm going to throw this up. This will be the last
Great
question, guys. I didn't realize we're over an hour today. But Mike Guido wants to know, where do you see your organization in 10 years? Short answers if possible. Mr. K?
Yeah, well, with I kind of two different things going on, right? With Revolution, we're trying to really create quality sport karate martial arts schools. We're not trying to be like global takeover, like hundreds of thousands of locations, but we're already looking at multiple locations for that. But my focus has really been on Raptor and growing the sport karate world because I want to get more people into sport karate. I want to get more people into that world because I do know, like we talked about, how much value there is in competing and in tournaments. And I think there's a lot of martial arts school owners out there that they see this stuff or their students see it on YouTube or whatever, ESPN, and they're like, I want to learn that, but they don't know how to teach it. They don't know how to do it. So we've now created a platform to grow that. And I really see the future of that growing to be something that far surpasses me or anything that I've done. So that's kind of what I would say. That's my brief, short answer.
Mr. Smith?
Well, so in full transparency, and I don't think it's a secret in the martial arts world, the organization that I'm currently a part of, which is Premier Martial Arts, I don't think it's going to be in existence 10 years from now. They've gotten hit with some heavy scandal. And so I predict that will be dissolved, but out of ashes always is born some new things and going in different directions. And so I'm aligning with some people that I feel like better align with me in the future. And so I'll have some more martial arts schools and hopefully some 2.0 models of some things, some good nuggets that I've picked up along this journey. So the best is yet to come. So just keep your eyes and your ears open.
How about you, Mr. Chip?
So for me, for my organization, not our full focus, obviously, because our bread and butter in our life is our headquarter location and our schools that we own, is to grow our affiliate program. Our goal is 5 affiliates a year. I think it's a reasonable number, reaching out to like orphan school owners that are alone, that are plateaued, lost, not sure, just need someone to kind of come alongside them and help them move along. So we'd like to have 50 affiliates in 10 years and be spending our time. And the other side of that is, when I'm on the mat, I can teach 10, 15, 20, 30, 50 kids at a time. But when I have 50 other people doing that same thing, now we've really multiplied. We've really begun to exponentiate growth. And that's how you spread a legacy and grow leadership and that sort of thing. So that's really becoming the goal at this stage in my life right now, is to expand that reach. And again, I'll qualify that with, I don't want it to sound egotistical, not for us, but that reach for God. So that's where it's at for us.
Awesome.
Love
Good
it.
stuff, guys. Good stuff. Well, in my next 10 years, I've been in business. I opened my school in 1994, and I have had multiple locations, and I have decided that is not in my interest, and definitely at this point, because I've gone into business in other areas. As a matter of fact, my goals, personal goals, would be that I'll be in office, a local politics, probably with earlier than 10 years for sure. But my goal for the school is that I have already told them that I will not do that if I am needed on a regular basis in my school on the daily. I need my school to run completely independently from me to be able to make that happen. I'm in my school several days a week in the mornings. I don't teach every day, but I'm still running a lot of our back end and most of that stuff, leadership, growing our leadership team to make that happen. So that would be my goal in the next 10 years, is to get my leadership team in a position where they can completely, handle everything day to day without me. And I'll be going into the local politics. So city council, watch out.
Was that Mr. Guido's question?
What's that?
Was that Mr. Guido's question?
That was, yes, it was. Yeah, that was Mr. Guido's question.
I'll give him my non-PC answer then. In 10 years, Jed will be 19. He'll be running the program. I'm going to be laying on a beach drinking a Mai Tai. That's my 10-year plan right there. It's called My Kid is My Retirement Plan. No, I'm just kidding. No.
Yeah, well, wouldn't that be awesome? Well, guys, listen, I apologize. We're 15 minutes over time, and I've kept you longer than I requested. But listen, amazing conversation. I knew that it was going to be a lot of fun today, and I knew that we would get a lot out of it. We had a great audience and great participation. And if you guys were watching and took something from this, please do me a favor and share the video and subscribe to Master Motivation on YouTube, and check out Mr. Smith's interview. Check out Mr. Townsend. Check out Mr. K was my very first interview almost 3 years ago. Master Motivation. So in 10 years, who knows how many people I'll have interviewed? I mean, 10 years, like that'll be pretty crazy.
Nice.
So,
I just wanted to jump in and say thanks to Josh. Really nice to meet you and get to connect with you a little bit. Thanks, Mr. Kevin. Great to meet you too. Really love seeing your son perform the other day. Jason, thanks for the podcast, the opportunity and the honor of being here with you guys. I took nuggets from all of you, and it's an honor to be in the same space. So thanks for all you guys do.
Absolutely.
Yes,
appreciate you guys so much.
Yeah.
All right. Well, guys, hang out for just a minute. We'll talk for a few seconds before you go. But for everybody else, please check us out on Monday and Wednesday every week, all the way through the end of 2023. Fully booked, solid, and bringing on more guests. So can't wait to see you guys soon. Have a great weekend. See you guys.
See you.